The Morning Dump
from Hurrdat Sports
with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
The only place for continued conversation that we can't get into on Coffee and Cream in the morning, it's Morning Dump on Hurrdat Sports alongside Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers, and this breaking just about 20 minutes ago from Adam Rittenberg. Sources say Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren is expected to be named Chicago Bears president and CEO. An announcement is likely later today or early Friday. Warren was named Big Ten Commissioner in 2019 after a long tenure in the NFL, and multiple reports following that too. And I don't know if this is bittersweet for people that enjoy Big Ten sports, or even if it's just the schools inside of the Big Ten. I don't know personal relationships there, but Kevin Warren early on in his career took a lot of heat, a lot of criticism for how he handled the COVID-19 pandemic. But then he went and turned it around and got USC and UCLA to become members of the Big Ten, and he was a big pioneer in that regard of bringing those teams in. Kevin Warren's a smart dude. He's a really smart guy. And fortunately for me, he's going to be leading the Chicago Bears, right, overseeing Chicago. He's got a lot of experience.
It's personal, isn't it?
It is a little personal for me now. But I'll tell you what. At the end of the day, Kevin Warren did some good things for the Big Ten, and I don't think that can be overstated.
Yeah, let's. I always thought this was weird with Kevin Warren and the things that Jim Delaney got credit for that it didn't seem like Kevin Warren did. And listen, not all that glitters was gold with Jim Delaney either, but he was held in very high regard, especially for the television deal that he captured for.
Yeah, let's not forget the $1.2 billion deal.
Which Kevin Warren, it didn't seem got a ton of credit for negotiating.
He didn't get a lot of credit because of what happened early on with him that nobody wanted to give him credit anymore.
I agree. And so I'm just like, man, are we looking at this through the same objective lens as we did with Jim Delaney, who, we didn't love the expansion. We were upset with Delaney early on over the scheduling. We didn't love Nebraska not getting the big piece of chicken at the dinner table early on when they first joined the Big Ten Conference. But we do remember the television deal promoting the conference. And remember, Kevin Warren was a key catalyst in negotiating the television rights package, which is huge in terms of the windfall for the Big Ten Conference. I mean, that is a ton of money.
We talk about this going to a Power 2 for a reason. Right. Kevin Warren helped do that.
Fantastic position in the media market, right, for the Big Ten, and divvying it up amongst the power players in TV. And, he did get a seat at the table with USC and UCLA in terms of expansion. I don't think he got the two other teams he wanted, and I don't know if that played a small factor or not. I think there were two other teams that they really coveted in the Pac-12 that didn't really come to fruition, which would have really completed, I think, kind of his – was it too soon to use a legacy? Like, legacy has to span more than 4 years, right?
I would assume – I would agree with that.
So it kind of his place in terms of the Big Ten commissioners, but man, did he have impact.
That's not to say that if this has even greater impact, if the future holds what we think it will, that he can't become a legacy because of what he did in 4 years.
We'll see how he ages. It appears to be pretty well, but it is amazing with the skepticism and kind of the criticism. And he took a lot of the wait-and-see approach during the pandemic. And, the Big Ten obviously got off to a late start, and it was pitted against, the Big 3 or 4 or 5, and the Big Ten against the rest of the Big Ten and the commissioner, and slow playing it and starting the season late. And, I mean, there was lots of hand-wringing and condemning early on, but I think in the grand scheme of things, when you take a look at kind of his place and what he's been able to do in terms of moving the Big Ten Conference along, how can it not be positive?
The only thing that kind of gives me an uneasy feeling is the fact that once you make this huge
Like something
move,
you'd need Tums for, or
yeah,
Pepsid?
Yeah,
What's your
Pepto-Bismol.
go-to? The one that starts with a G?
Oh, it's
Really settled your stomach.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Gas.
No, so I had gastritis, and it was gabapentin. No, gabapentin. No, is that what Molly takes? She takes gabapentin.
That's your dog.
Yeah, it's not that. But I get that once a month.
And you go, hey, take this, and it'll get rid of any stomach issues immediately.
Oh my.
It's all good.
It's a blue bottle.
It's all good.
Well, it's white bottle with blue on it.
It's all good in the neighborhood.
No, it's not. Now I'm gonna have to look it up.
Is it stuck in your craw?
What?
What?
Hey, but what I was getting at is what kind of leaves an uneasy feeling for me. And the Big Ten probably already has it figured out. But
I don't know.
When you make this big of a move with all of this stuff on the table, who comes in and makes sure that nothing fumbles? Right? Because you can't just set up all these things and then expect a new king to come in and just be able to implement them, or can you?
Well,
you have to, but you also have to have the right man or woman to do that.
I think the two easy choices for this would be Jim Phillips, who I think a lot of people kind of pegged before he left Northwestern to take the job that he took with the ACC to come back to the Big Ten. Or do we even throw this out there? Other people will. Will Gene Smith leave Ohio State to be the commissioner of the Big Ten?
He'd be a good one.
Can Gene Smith go objective global enough? What is it?
Gaviscon.
Gaviscon
is what it is. I knew it had a blue label.
Man, you were going to get that, weren't you?
Well, once something's on my mind, I can't let it go. Now I can go back. Who are we talking about?
Yeah. So I'm thinking Jim Phillips.
Jim Phillips, yep.
Or Gene Smith. Either one of those names.
Would you rather have somebody that was a commissioner just kind of make that lateral move, even though it's not really lateral because it's much bigger in the Big Ten, versus somebody that's just been overseeing one program in that conference for a long time?
So how long? So Phillips only had that job in the ACC for 2 years after leaving Northwestern, I believe?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because it says right here, Jim Phillips, and not even going to try to pronounce the last name of the Pac-12 commissioner, but have been in their roles since 2021.
So do you bring him back? Because he had, he's got 30 years plus in Division I, experience in Division I athletics.
Seems like a good one to have at the totem pole.
I kind of like Gene Smith just because he enjoys being at the top. He's a power broker. I think he commands presence. Has he run his course at Ohio State? I mean, he's probably got his own issues with trying to figure out how to get Ohio State from 12 wins to 13, right? I mean, fudge, first world problems. Listen.
Must suck to have to do that job.
Right, Dave, man. He's got 6-7 losses in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
We gotta
top 6 every single year.
Yeah, we gotta find us a new coach. I mean, like I say all that tongue in cheek, but right. Is that something that is like at least on the table?
I think anything's on the table at this point. But I also think there has to be somebody that Kevin Warren knows or has been in the helping build this process, which may be a guy like Gene Smith that have been a big almost like a council member, right? A big point of emphasis for him to lean on to be like helping him with the decision-making process. There has to be somebody below him, below Kevin Warren, I'm saying, that best knows this situation and can execute. Gene Smith seems like a good one. Seems like a very good guess. But it could also just be like, hey, I'm friends with all the commissioners, and, this guy's shown a lot of promise over the years, a.k.a. Jim Phillips.
It seems like Gene Smith has a pretty good relationship with the rest of the athletic directors. That's key. right? You have to be able to understand kind of the university presidents and the chancellors, their policies, kind of what they believe, having a pulse for what the Big Ten wants to be from academics to athletics.
Sure.
Got to have a good command of that. So Smith checks that box. Obviously, Jim Phillips does too. And Phillips maybe has the advantage just because while it was short-lived, he has been the commissioner of a conference.
Does that give you the advantage in this case, though?
Nah, that's a good point. Good question, I should say.
It's a point and a question.
Not necessarily.
Because Gene Smith has been around Ohio State since what? 2000 and mid-2000,
yeah.
2010, somewhere around there, 4 to 6. So he's been in the conference for 16, 17, 18 years. We'll just say I'm gonna give a rough estimate when I lay that out there. He helped guide Ohio State to where they are today.
Yeah, this would be his 18th year.
18 years with one school. So he's been
he got to Ohio State in 2005.
He knows the ins and outs of the Big Ten.
Very much so.
He knows what they want to accomplish and where they are currently going. I like that. I like that prediction.
Yeah, and is there okay, let me ask you this. If you're looking for somebody in terms of qualifications, is the first one understanding what? Is it the climate of the Big Ten or is it the climate of college football? And are those the same or two different things? Because on the surface, my opinion, they appear to be two different things, especially if we're gravitating towards the big two.
Right. I think for one, you have to find somebody that's a politician, right? And I use that term loosely. When I say politician, they have to be a key voice and a leader, because if you are moving the direction of the top two, you have to have somebody that has a status of, a Gary Bettman, a Roger Goodell, a Rob Manfred, like the best of the best commissioner status. That's what you need at the college sports level that we're at today. So finding somebody that can be a so-called politician and win the room, win the people, and you're gonna have to handle a lot of heat too, because you can't all be loved in a position like that. I think that's critical.
So one of the things you can cross off your list, at least early on, is negotiating rights, at least for television deals, right? Because
it's set.
You're good there in the conference. So I think
maybe somebody that can help further the NIL point for the players themselves.
No, that's part of it. I completely agree there. What about the more I think about this at first blush, and listen, we've only been talking about this.
We've only known about it for 20 minutes.
Right. So I think more about power brokers than I do like socialism. And by that I mean if we're going to continue down this road of have and have-nots for conferences, and will we get to a Big Two or a Big Three in terms of conference, do I want a guy or gal that thinks more that way, or do I want kind of this rising tide lifts all boats, we want the bottom closer to the top? Are we going to stay in this direction of
top heavy?
Yeah, because we have some huge conferences. I mean, and the reason I lean towards will be top heavy is because I don't see the SEC relenting.
I don't think so.
We just heard their commissioner say, hold on about this whole expansion thing. I don't know if this is a good idea. Right? You can't unring the bell now.
Fine. Why? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, at least for them.
That's kind of how he thinks.
And he definitely doesn't think about the landscape of college football. He thinks about the SEC conference.
Oh, yeah. He thinks about himself. And when I say himself, he thinks about his people.
And, Clem McCoff, the commissioner of the Pac-12, who I really like. I actually listened to him a ton over the last year, and he kept some of the teams in that conference when that conference was close to maybe disbanding. He kind of rallied late to, at least for now, save the Pac-12 conference. when I look at guys like that, I know you have to fight for your conference, but as the commissioner now, if you get into this power broker situation, do you have to be a little bit more forward thinking on the grand scheme of things? That's one of the things I'll be curious to see. I don't know.
It's a very interesting topic of conversation, more so below the people that know to really ever know.
Yeah,
but
I do think there's just a lot of opinions on like the general direction that you think college football is moving in. If it's going to be all about money and being fair and balanced with terms of coach-player relationships like we've seen with the portal and NIL and, hey, the players need to have a say-so and how we're going to run this, then maybe you move less away from global thinking and maybe just focus on your conference.
I see a lot of people on Twitter saying good riddance, terrible commish, adios, thanks for nothing. I see a bye Felicia. I see a thank you, baby Jesus. And these are from people that are not only just Big Ten football fans, but Husker fans too. So
I think that's weird. I think he gets a bad rap.
I think so too. I am in the room of for Kevin Warren than I am in the room against Kevin Warren. And I know that you guys, I say you guys, I don't want to address anybody in particular, but how he handled the COVID-19 pandemic and canceling the season and then it getting later reversed and then it was, kind of a cluster to try to get everything going again. I know that wasn't heavily favored because you want sports to continue when everything else isn't, right? Mm-hmm. You're looking for that outlet. You're looking for that positivity, and that's what sports was. But nobody knew how to handle that. Yeah. And, it's so unfair to be critical in that moment and only hold somebody to that and not go back and look at what he did before he left. It's one thing if he did that during COVID and then left a year later. And you can be like, dude, you just damaged us. Yeah. But you're not damaged goods anymore because everything is going in a positive direction for the Huskers and the rest of the Big Ten. You have that big TV rights deal. You have the Power 2 direction going your way. You have two of the best teams in college football from this year joining your conference in 2024. In a way, put your personal feelings of the dude aside. He did good things for the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. And he's leaving the Big Ten in a good place.
I think if you're a Nebraska fan, don't you feel like you're in a better place than you were 4 years ago fiscally?
I would think so.
I don't know how much grace people are willing to give. I think I give a ton during the COVID year because it was real time.
Like I said, nobody knew what to do. A pandemic like that never had to be handled in our lifetime.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I probably got to think about it a little more. But
when was the last big pandemic? Would it have been polio?
Yeah, the 20s.
Right.
Maybe?
So there is nobody. Well, maybe there's a few people still living that experienced part of that as a child, but outside of that, nobody knew how to handle a pandemic in this century.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just don't need that pound of flesh. And I know I said that a ton.
What I like to look for, too, is what he did well and where he left the conference. If he left the conference in bad shape, then, yeah, take some criticism.
Yeah, I just think the Big 12 the Big 10 is in a better spot.
I think so, too.
Post him leaving than when he got here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if that's debatable. Is it?
I would love to know why people don't think like we're thinking right now. And if you have thoughts, 888-638-4876 tomorrow on the show.
Yeah, I'll be curious.
Coffee and Cream. I want to hear more about this.
Yeah, because there could be perspectives I'm missing.
And there's probably a lot that I'm missing.
It could be debatable, but is it debatable? You almost got to look at it. Is it debatable in 5 years? Is it debatable? If this was to happen, the more time you put away from the pandemic, the less less that is even remembered.
Speaking of time, the turnaround time to get the Big Ten where they are today after the pandemic, that's something to cheer for.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, again, 888-638-4876 tomorrow if you have thoughts on Kevin Warren, whether it's positive or negative. Like, I want to hear both because for me, like, I don't pay attention to commissioners all too much. Like, I pay attention to what they're doing, but I'm not in their everyday life. And if you know something that I don't, inform me. Like that, I feel like I'll become a better person by knowing that information. So
let's see what happens.
So call in tomorrow again, one more time, 888-638-4876. He's Damon Benning, at Damon Benning on Twitter. I'm at Andrew Rogers TV. The show at Hurrdat Sports. Coffee and Cream is at H Varsity Radio. And if you missed anything on the show from this morning, go back to your favorite podcast app, type in Hail Varsity Radio. You may have to scroll down a smidge because at points, I've noticed what we do is we break them up in segments so you can pick and choose what you want to hear, but also the full show is listed at one point, so just pay attention for that. For now, that's all for this episode of Morning Dump. We'll see you tomorrow.